So, now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about how we build these creative industries on the continent. The business of stories. How do we amplify them? The sounds of Africa. How do we amplify them? So we've brought together an exceptional lineup of trailblazers at the forefront of the transformation of Africa's creative industries. They are active participants and shapers of Africa's creative destiny, understanding the global market and the unparalleled potential within our continent. They are exceptional, they are bold, and they are beautiful. Please join me in welcoming to the stage our panelists, Mr. Fotemah, Media Advisor at Trace TV and Executive at Cinq Musique. Also joining us, Dr. Shain Shapiro, Founder and Executive Director at the Center for Music Ecosystems. Yes, join us. Mr. Boris Kodjoe, actor, director, and co-founder of the Full Circle Economic Conference. Dr. Xander Pratt, artist, fashion designer, and entrepreneur. Ms. Flaviana Matata, model, founder, and CEO of Lavy company. And moderating this exceptional conversation is Ms. Poku-Spalding, founder and CEO of the Y Suit. Oh, we're missing one seat, please. No. It's coming. We're bringing in. Thank you so much. We're going to get you a seat in just a moment. Thank you, Dee, for moderating this exceptional panel. What a great lineup we have.
Thank you.
We'll get it to you. Maybe you can get started as we bring you that seat. Yeah, there it is. There you go. There you go.
All right. Well, it's nice to have a chair. Good afternoon, everybody. It's thrilling to be here to talk about the intersection between Africa's creator economy and talent and innovation and infrastructure. So we have an incredible group here today. To my immediate left is Shain Shapiro, who is the founder of MEDI. You can clap. Xander Pratt, Boris Kodjoe, actor, director, and co-founder of Full Circle Africa. Fotemah.
That was my mom.
Yeah, you have plants in the audience. Fotemah, who is head of A&R for Cinq Music. Xander Pratt, who is a multidisciplinary artist, fashion designer, and entrepreneur. And last but by no means least, Flaviana Matata, who is a model, entrepreneur, and founder of Lavy company. So I'm a Ghanaian entrepreneur. I live in New York. I've lived on 3 continents. My business sits at the intersection of business and culture. So it feels very appropriate, and I'm very excited to have this conversation about how we explore this intersection between talent, business, and ecosystems. So Boris, I'm going to start with you. So for centuries, as we all know in this audience, Africa has been defined by a very limiting narrative, which generally consists of famine and conflict. You are using your platform as an actor and as a filmmaker and your organization, Full Circle Africa, to change that and to really reframe our story as around excellence as it should be. So what is your ultimate ambition for the creator economy with Full Circle Africa?
Well, I think when we look at goals and objectives on the continent, there's 2 things we have to consider. 1, where did we come from? And number 2, how can we phrase the objectives so all sectors buy into it? In the case of Full Circle, it was pretty simple. I personally had a mission to change the way people thought and talked about Africa. Growing up, my father is Ghanaian. You can clap. My father's from Ghana, my mother's German, so we grew up in both places. And my friends always teased me about, living on trees and not having running water and just the typical bias and stereotypes that we hear about Africa. And when I had the ability to do something about it, I felt it was my purpose to step into that role. And with Full Circle, we were able to take Ghana from 40,000 tourist visa to 1.2 million the next year. Just by way of counteracting old narratives and by sharing content worldwide that told a different story. Story about excellence, story about history, story about diversity, stories about tech and innovation and progress. And those stories were never shared with the world. And it ignited a sense of excitement about Africa, and people started coming in droves. And to the tune of $10 billion added to the economy in 7 years. And that was the case study that we used, that led us to launch a content fund in partnership with Afrexim Bank, who are also here today. And shout out to Afrexim Bank, who had the vision to understand that creative industries is not a hobby. It's actually the most important tool in storytelling. And when you're talking about any sector, you're talking about storytelling, right? And when you control the narrative, you control perception. Perception being the biggest challenge that Africa has endured in the past 100 years. And when we control perception, we control our future. So to control the entire content value chain is the key to controlling the narrative, to generating great returns for our investors, and also to generate great economic, cultural, and social impact.
Amazing. I mean, I love that. And I love, in particular, the way you frame it around storytelling, because storytelling is really at the root of how we've shared our stories. And so to use that to sort of really underpin the bigger mission, of course, makes sense for us as a culture and community. So, Flaviana, I'm going to jump to you at the other end and talk to you as someone who, like me, has lived in more than one place. You live between the US and Tanzania. You're a model, you're an entrepreneur, you're a businesswoman, and you're a creator. And I think that, also sort of within the sort of creative community, we've been sort of pigeonholed as being from one place or the other, and actually African creators are global. And so that's something that you've found, that you felt sort of boxed in as a creative. So can you tell me a bit more about, as coming up in your career, and like sort of what was missing for you as you tried to build your career?
Thank you, Dee. Honestly, it hasn't been easy because you're juggling between two countries, Tanzania and the US. They are two completely different countries, culture-wise and in so many aspects. And sometimes you miss the sense of belonging. When I go back home, because I go home a lot, they see me as I live in the US. And when I'm back in the US, they're like, okay, how long are you here for? So you sometimes miss opportunities because of that, but I knew from the very early stage of my career that I did not want to be a stranger in my own country. So I've just learned to navigate that as I'm going, use the fashion and the modeling industry as a platform to do everything that I'm doing back home. And when I first started, it's like I was seen as like, she's doing so much. Because as a model back then, I'm talking about 12 years ago, you are expected to just focus with the industry and not having your own business, not your own non-profit or anything else. So you just have to be ready for that call and show up. But when I look at it now, I'm super grateful that I looked at a bigger picture and decide to invest back home, where I have my own business and my nonprofit as my way of giving back. But I can see as a creator who lives in between country, what is missing, to be honest, is still the same, the proper infrastructure for us, to have like proper management or agencies who understand how to place African talent in the global stage. But even back home in Africa, it's like, do our governments support and see the importance of creative industry? No. Except for a few. Boris, you guys are lucky. You have the president who see the value in what you guys are doing, and I think President Kagame is also trying, but I'll speak from where I come from. I think talent are mostly appreciated when they want to use them, especially in the political arena for campaign to pull crowds, but the government is not really that supportive. I'm like, can we change that? Even with a corporation and big companies, do we see the value on storytelling? Can we use our own creator to tell stories? Because they add so much value. And I'm like, we do not have to wait to get to the global stages. Our numbers are very clear. Our talents is there. And we are not just contributors of the culture. We are the leaders. So it's really up to us to wake up and take the ownership and run with it. If it's needed, let's create our own platform, just like what China did. And then everybody else will catch up with us. Africa, it is unstoppable, but it's all up to us to run with all the opportunity, to learn what we are learning in the global stage and go home and make it our own.
So I want to jump from that actually to Shain. Yes, applause. Thank you. Because we've been talking about the role of government in supporting creatives. And so you've come up with a very interesting idea using the lens of music to solve a poverty crisis. But you are also mining data and giving that to governments to help them understand the value of these industries. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, for every dollar that gets generated in Africa by music, usually 85 to 90 cents leaves immediately. That's not exactly the best way to grow an economy. I feel that, so I run a nonprofit called the Center for Music Ecosystems, and we're working on a project to help incorporate music as an economic development tool in Africa. And what's missing is not talent, obviously. Look at this panel and all of you guys. I feel very awkward being the talentless, commercially talentless person on the panel, I'd say. But what is missing is infrastructure, especially infrastructure that we can't see, right? This means copyright and respect of intellectual property. Because when we think of the word, we tend to focus on the word intellectual and forget the word property. So in order for music to ensure that it's building economic development, the money has to stay in the country as much as possible. In order to do that, there needs to be systems that remunerate creators. And we have to demonstrate why this matters. So I'm working with Global Citizen, a fantastic charity, Universal Music Group, the IFC, and governments in Cote d'Ivoire and Nigeria on a pilot to see of how we can treat music like we would treat any other form of economic development and invest in the grassroots. Because I truly believe that everyone is focused on building the shiniest, fastest car, not realizing that no one's built the track. And I want to be a part of building the track everywhere and ensure that that track is owned by the people that live in that place. And that is what we're trying to work on with the Music Economy Development Initiative.
So staying with the music, I'm going to jump to Fotemah on this particular point of Africa's music being this incredible export, and how we ensure that the profits and the benefits from that are also, those rewards are being reaped by the continent. And so what do you think we need from an infrastructure standpoint or from a training standpoint to ensure that we are harnessing and growing our own talent and reaping those economic benefits for ourselves?
That's a good question, Dee. And me and Shain were having this discussion backstage. it's important that we build what I call the middle. I think Boris alluded to that those people that you don't see, the A&Rs, my mom asks me every day, what does the A&R do? What do you do for a living? A&Rs, your managers, your lawyers, your data analysts, your engineers, studio engineers, those are the infrastructures that I feel like are currently needed. And of course, in addition to Cinq, I'm the North American advisor for Trace TV. And with Trace Academia, that's one of the things that we're focused on doing is making sure that these trainings and these sessions are available on the platform.
Thank you. So, thank you. So Xander, I'm going to jump to you as, you are a multidisciplinary artist. How have you figured out how to fund your passions and your projects? It's a funny joke to say, our parents don't know what we do. My parents don't know what I do. But as long as I'm still functioning and can pay my rent, we're good. But there is this sort of perception of certain jobs not being as serious or not being as sustainable. So for you as an artist, how do you support your passions and how do you sort of drive funding towards what you want to do?
That's a dope question. Firstly, what's poppin', everybody? What up? Just even before I answer that, just a big shout out to Arun, because I'm there on behalf of this initiative. And they're, Habiba, Fleur, everyone, and it's basically a creative platform that is reclaiming the narrative of the African story and heritage. And I think this is very powerful because this is where one is when they begin, and this is where you want to be. But to get there, you have to walk through a lot of darkness, which is coming to your question about how did I fund everything. I had to go through a lot of darkness in order to believe in the light I had inside. And this is the power of an African, because we are all African. When I was younger, my mother, 8 years old, she would tell me, pick your clothes out of the closet. And I'd take something out, and she'd ask me, why would you take that out? How many human beings would take out the same thing? Go back inside and do it differently. And this is a power of Africa, because our narrative has been fed to us in a way that indoctrinated our minds and our power. We were taught that we had to look up to believe, not inside to see. We are the sons and daughters of strategists, master strategists, kings, queens. And when I design, when I create, when I paint the blood and the feelings of my ancestors because I feel it. I don't think about money or what I'll need to fund anything. If I wake up tomorrow morning and I want to create a new painting exhibition in Tokyo, I will do it. And no one will stop me, because when you believe, the money is what will dilute the strength of your resolve. You follow the belief, because when you believe, you're the closest to God you can ever be. But yes, did I digress?
Well, we're loving the poetry of it all, for sure. Thank you. So, yes.
I just want to say that I believe sitting next to you.
Thank you. I mean, just on the sort of thread of sort of investing in talent, Boris, I know that you have invested in over 75 businesses in partnership or through partners like True Culture and Y Combinator. How do we make the business case for investing in Africa's creatives?
I think that's the most important question, because even though I absolutely agree with what you said about our spiritual selves having a human experience and what that means for our purpose, I think that, and also to answer your question, I think it's very important that we understand that if we want people to take creative industry seriously, we have to present it that way. We have to present it like a business case. We have to present it with data, with analytics, so that you were talking about governments not understanding. The government's not going to understand how a movie, a fashion line, a modeling agency is beneficial to the people in the context of life-changing technologies, infrastructure that are important for, healthcare, education, unless you present data that shows them why it's important. Culturally, we're still in a place where a lot of communities believe that creative industries are, like I said earlier, a hobby, an outlet, and which it is, but also it has a direct impact on the GDP, and you have to show that. And when you show that, and especially when you show them how much money they're leaving on the table, if they don't invest in your business or industry, that's what gets them going. So that was a big part of our business, to show them how much money they're leaving on the table and how our version of our creative industry has an impact on up to 26 different sectors. So you have to show them how it's, have to show them tangible information that lets them know that this is viable and this is necessary. And storytelling does its part, but you have to show them why and how.
Right, always making the business case for why it makes sense. Flaviana, I want to ask you about sort of moving slightly towards brands who come onto the continent to partner with creatives, and what you have seen work well, like in terms of like partnerships that you've been a part of, and how you, again, think we can better channel that sort of inward support in a way that supports us on the continent.
I think most brand, as Boris said, it's all about numbers, because at the end of the day, it's business. Does it make sense for them business-wise? Are you a creator who can convert? But also they need to know that conversion takes time. When I'm scrolling on my social media, I don't buy immediately, but maybe I'm going to use that inspiration later on. So there has to be an alignment. Is Boris a talent that can represent and speak for your brand and have a long-term partnership for it to make sense business-wise, if I'm right. So I think most of them, they love the idea of tapping into the African market, but do they see our value and influence and our strength? And I think also it's up to us. Let's start with the brands that are in the continent to show the numbers. That is going to convince other people who are global actors to come into the continent and invest in our creativity.
When we talk about numbers, again, the World Bank says we need to create 1.2 billion jobs to meet the demographic dividend, not just in Africa, in the world, and we're set to create about 420 million. So we have an issue. We have a lot of jobs that we need to create, and I think that we're never going to hit peak culture, right? Like, we need to start investing more what's in our heads and less what's in the ground. And I think in order to do that, we need to build an environment that understands what kind of data we need to collect to demonstrate the economic value of what Boris does, and to demonstrate how this literally creates jobs in communities. Because most people simply do not understand how the creative economy works. As I was saying backstage, I even really dislike this term creative economy because it doesn't mean anything. We all work in different sectors. Sports got its own panel. Yeah, we're all lumped together.
We're mad about the sports panel.
Yeah, we're all lumped together. But this is all about education, of how we need to demonstrate how does music make money? How does film make money? It makes money through intellectual property. It makes money through infrastructure. It makes money through investing in talent long term. This is why most of the large music publishing companies in the world are invested in from pension funds. Music, culture, film, this is as much an annuity as anything else, but we have to demonstrate that, and I think we're on the road to do that.
Also, the models have to change, right? The way we consume content has changed, so we have to adapt to that and not keep riding the horse in the carriage when there's cars around. The old Hollywood model doesn't work anymore. You can't produce movies for $50 million, $100 million and expect to make money for investors. It doesn't work. With all the streamers out there, with TV ratings going down, you have to adapt to a new model that services content consumption the way it was meant to be. You have to meet the consumer where they are now, not 30 years ago. And some of those numbers are staggering. People say the industry is dying. The model is dying. It's not the industry. Content demand is skyrocketing. Streamers, networks spend over $250 billion in acquiring and producing content right now. And Africa has a substantial part of that. Following the music, Afrobeats has dominated airwaves over the past 10 years. So the visual media, the visual narrative is following that trend. Everything is going to move to Africa. If you don't invest now, in 3 to 5 years, it's too late. We're talking about 2 billion people at the time. We're talking about 900 million smartphones. We're talking about high-speed internet access growing from 25% to 70% by the year 2030. We're talking about 40% of the world's youth being in Africa by 2030. 40% of the world's youth. That means content creators and content consumers. So that's an ongoing cycle that keeps growing, because content creators, the creative economy is, the creator economy is huge. Over 40 million creators in Africa, creating everything from YouTube videos, short form, gaming. That's all taking place in Africa. Now the key is, like he said, like everybody said, the key is that we have to get used to exporting our goods and services, not our talent. We got to keep the talent at home, we got to keep exporting the goods and services that we create and we have ownership of. So those models need to change.
So it comes back to proper infrastructure, Boris.
Sorry, what did you say?
I say it comes back to proper infrastructure, management, partnership, opportunities. Because without all of that, I think we have to create that infrastructure first to be able to capitalize on everything that you're saying.
Well, infrastructure depends on capitalization, right? So since our stories have been undervalued, that capitalization has been left out. But now we have all the resources we need, right? As long as we have the strategy and the model and we get used to working together, not in silos, we can produce all of those things. Infrastructure is just a matter of building capacity and capitalization. We have that.
But how do we move together as a continent instead of having, like you said, cliques like West Africa and East Africa? And I think we need to come together at some point and do, because we are powerful together rather than just having all this segregation of every part of Africa, they are doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Well, the African Free Trade Agreement has set the stage for us to be able to collaborate and partner. You, people like yourself, have to take the baton and run with it and create partnerships with other like-minded people.
But then also, an interesting thing is like, it's also, even like, look how you spoke now. You have so many facts about so many interesting things, and you're a Black African. You know, I think it's not just the Africans in Africa, but it's the Africans who are outside Africa who have learned things, who have to come back home and start to create this infrastructure so that we don't only work together in Africa, we work together as a people. I believe that is.
That's what I just said. We can't work in silos. We have to work together. I include that diaspora in that conversation. We're not separate. We're the same.
I agree with that.
Our history here didn't start 400 years ago, right? We're not descendants of slaves. We're descendants of vast kingdoms, civilizations, and royalty. And as soon as we get that in our heads, we can make something happen.
I would love to hear, Fotemah. I want to give you the last word on this.
I think, first off, kudos to Boris for what he was able to do in Ghana.
Absolutely.
And I feel like he set the trend for the rest of the continent. He's made governments pay attention to what's going on in the creative sector. And first of all, our creativity is not a charity. I want to make sure I emphasize that.
Yes.
And then when people start realizing that, they'll realize that, no pun intended, that we're unstoppable. When you talk about model, over at Trace, in order to scale, Trace is going through a transition where they had to partner with bike dance to make sure that creatives are paid for their creativity, their stories, streaming, everything in one platform. But Trace is not the end-all, be-all. We need more platforms just like that in order to promote, the continent to be unstoppable.
Unstoppable Africa. Thank you so much to our panelists. We've seen today that African creativity is not just shaping culture, but it is fueling economic growth, but it's all about public-private partnerships, how government, creative, talent, innovation can come together to drive outcomes for us on the continent. Thank you so much for being here.